Is that where we are? 20th, yeah? Corey, it says 2023, but that's not a problem. We all know it's 2024. And I'd like to go ahead at this time and have a call to order and roll call.
Chair Pulitz,
Present.
Vice Chair Norvell, Treasurer Rogers, Member Golden, Member Hamilton, Member Horton, Member Hutter. A quorum is present.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to go ahead and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. And Mr. Rogers, may you do it since you just got back from vacation and extra work? Yeah.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I think everyone's had a chance to review the minutes of the past meeting of the Airport Authority. Is there any comments on the minutes? If not, I'd like to hear a motion to approve the minutes.
Chairman Pulitz, I'll make that motion to approve the minutes from the past Airport Authority meeting.
Thanks, Mr. Golden. Second for Mr. Hamilton. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, minutes approved. The chairman reserves the right to modify the agenda in order to most effectively process the agenda items. Items may be taken out of order. Items may be combined for consideration by the authority, and items may be pulled or removed from the agenda at any time. That being said, it's been brought to my attention that the agenda item number 2 for the airport emergency plan revision needs to be tabled. We found that there's a few items that need to be addressed before we have the final draft. And it's something that the city of Carson would like us to look at a little more thoroughly. So on Mr. Horton's recommendation, we're going to go ahead and table this till next meeting. Number 2, I'm going to also change the agenda real quickly so that the engineer's report follows the 2 voting items. We have a time frame for one of our members to get out of here, but it's a pretty quick meeting, so it'll become pretty quick. All right. Public comment. Members of the public who wish to address the Airport Authority may speak on agendized and non-agendized matters related to the airport. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person or topic. If your item requires extended discussion, please request the chairman to calendar the matter for a future Airport Authority meeting. Now, the public can provide public comment in advance of a meeting by a written submission to the following email address: manager@flycarsoncity.com, for inclusion or reference in the minutes of the meeting. Your public comment must include your full name and address, be submitted via email by not later than 5 p.m. the day before the meeting. The Carson City Airport Authority values your input. Members of the public who wish to provide live public comment may do so during the designated public comments periods indicated on the agenda in person. So we're going to move right on to the consent agenda items. Number 1, which is item G, number 1, possible action, review and approve addendum 2, task order E, attachment to the professional services agreement between sponsor and engineer. The airport manager will present this to us. Oh, okay. On consent, okay. Has everybody had a chance to look at this? And if it's okay, we go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes.
move that we approve the consent agenda as written.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It moves. Okay, we're going to move on to the public hearings. Okay, public hearings and the item number 1 for discussion and possible action, review and approve the fiscal year 24-25 preliminary budget for submission to the Nevada Department of Taxation. Staff summary.
Okay, so for this item, this is very similar to the preliminary budget that was reviewed at the last board meeting. So I'm not going to go through it line by line. I have a couple of comments about what was changed between then and now. The salary section has all been adjusted to accurately reflect employee raises. And also the pavement maintenance capital improvement project has been renamed to pavement maintenance from Perimeter Road project. We are looking at our ASIP, and if the FAA has informed us that if our runway extension project is approved, we will likely not be approved for our pavement maintenance projects that we have on the ASIP. So we need to be prepared to perform pavement maintenance on the airfield without federal funding throughout the life of the runway extension if we're approved for that. We have a crack seal project going on right now at the airport. That is something that was in the previous budget, and we'll likely need to do more projects like that since we will potentially not be getting the federal funding for pavement maintenance projects. We don't know exactly what projects we'll need to do, but we'll know we'll need to be doing maintenance. And we'll basically need to be doing what we can when we can. So that is why this project is now called pavement maintenance. And that's the only changes that were made.
Can we use entitlement funding for that?
We've already got plans for our entitlement
Oh, okay.
funding. We could, if we didn't already have that plans for utilizing those funds. Go ahead, Michael.
Just, I don't want to be the, eternal optimist, but it should be noted that if we were to get funding for the runway extension, in theory, and only in theory, our revenue base would increase due to the potential for more aircraft being based here and the potential for more fuel being purchased, which means more fuel flow fee. Now, will it offset that pavement maintenance number? Probably not even close, but it's something. And it's probably wiser for us as an airport authority to pursue the runway extension if approved and funded, and get the pavement maintenance done at a later date when we can go back to the well with the FAA. Just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Michael. It's very, very good points. We'll have the airport capital improvement plan for the board's approval as soon as that's complete. We had our ASIP meeting with the FAA already, but we're going to be having a follow-up meeting with them to discuss the runway extension in more detail. And so we would have likely had the ASIP for approval today, but it's not quite ready.
And you're certain that they would never entertain widening the runway?
I wouldn't say never. I think that we are really stretching things as it is to get the runway extension. So asking for a runway widening to be a part of that same project is too much to ask for. But I do believe that if we do get the approval for the runway extension and we do start to get larger aircraft utilizing the airport, that then the FAA would consider widening the runway. So I wouldn't say never. I would just say it's not something we should pursue right now.
Member Golden mentioned increased revenues. Going from 75 to 100 feet would really enhance that possibility.
I want to state something, and Corey can really embellish on it. We're a category B2, is that right? Are we B2, Corey, or B3? I thought we're B2.
The runway design is B2, but the approach can handle larger than B2.
Right, so we're category B2. Taking that to 100 feet, I believe, puts us into the next category, and that's where the FAA is going to dig their heels in and say no. They're just not going to do it.
Well,
I'm just saying, I'm giving you reality.
I'm not sure that that's the case.
I've been there before. It's reality.
The separation between the runway center line and the center line of the taxiways, and that doesn't change. We'd actually hoped to get a C3 airport, which we know will never happen now.
That also is a separate discussion, I believe. We can talk about independent from this agenda item.
Is that it?
Steve Takis did have a comment about this. Steve, do you want to just make that comment?
It's just that the preliminary budget does not need to be approved by the entire board. It just needs to be submitted by the treasurer by April 15th. However, if you guys are ready to approve it, that's fine. I mean, that's a cleaner way to do it.
Okay.
And that's the way you've done it in the past.
And then please outline for the board the final approval or the final budget process and timing.
Yeah, so the final budget needs to be approved in May, and I have to look up the date, but I think last year it turned out that our meeting fit within the criteria, because they used to have a really narrow criteria, and now they've made it a little broader. And so I'll check and make sure, but I think our regular meeting in May is when the final budget needs to be approved. And the way it's worded in the statute, it's the meeting at which the board considers the tentative budget and makes it final or makes changes to it. But as a practical matter, you send in a tentative budget by April 15th, you can make whatever changes you want to before you approve the final budget. Typically, we don't have many changes to make between the tentative and the final, and particularly given that John started this process early enough. I think we pretty smoked out most of the issues. It would only be if there were some, revenue or tax change that came to us in the interim that we would want to reflect on the final budget. So, and the final budget you all have to sign. The tentative budget, only the treasurer needs to sign.
Thanks, Mr. Takis. Any other comments? Well, if not, I'm comfortable having a vote on this, even though it's not necessarily required. The motion would be to approve the fiscal year 24-25 preliminary budget as directed by staff to submit to the Nevada Department of Taxation. Would someone like to make that motion?
I'll happily do so, Chairman Pulis. Just a point of clarification, though, do we need to do this again?
Right.
That would be the final budget. Then.
Correct.
Okay, so
This is a preliminary budget.
So I'll move that we accept the preliminary budget as submitted, pending final budget approval by the airport authority.
Any other comments? Any other comments from the board? Nope. Well, then, what do I hear a second? Okay, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion pass. Okay. That's it for the agenda for voting. Now we can move on to the engineer's report.
All right, so for the record, Brian Martinez-Molas, Wood Rogers. So Corey had already touched on the ACIP efforts that we've been working with Corey and the airport's planner on. So we actually have a follow-up meeting with the FAA this week, and so we're just continuing that effort. And then beyond that, over the last month, we did finalize our plan review for the Arrowhead Tenant LLC, and so we've worked with Corey on that. And that is done as far as our side of things at this moment. And that's all I have for this month.
I just had a question, Mr. Chairman.
Go right ahead.
With respect to Arrowhead Tenant LLC, do they have all the permits and everything they need now to go full steam ahead on that project, or are they still waiting?
So I'll let Corey answer that because my involvement is really just our independent review, and we didn't have any oversight as far as their permitting goes. But
They have received their building permit from the city. So they're pretty much good to go.
Any other questions for Brian? And there's no one online, right? We don't have anything from Armstrong from previous? Okay. With that,
Armstrong did include a email that's in the board packet.
Correct.
I felt like it was I should add some clarification. It's the subject they're referring to is the snow removal equipment building. I didn't find it to be that clear, but
Yeah, why don't you quickly, Corey, kind of explain, it's a little bit technical what's going on because they had to jump through a bunch of hoops on a bunch of permitting questions and requirements. And I know that they've addressed all or mostly all. Can you kind of give us just a quick update?
so they had received the response from the city with their request for a building permit, and it was fairly. There's a lot of depth to it. There's a lot of comments. There was some communication issues there. The engineer was not able to get a response from the city. We had to work through that. That has all been resolved. They've determined that they are able to meet all of the requirements that they were put in the comments, and that is the purpose of the amendment that was approved today. With the amendment, it's minor change in expense to cover everything that's required in their comments from the city. So now they're working through that. Now that we've approved this amendment and they've resolved the communications issue, they are now moving forward with making the required adjustments to meet the comments from the city for that building permit. And that's pretty much where it's at right now. So it's caused a little bit of a delay, but it looks like everything's full speed ahead now. So.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions?
I'm not sure if this is the appropriate place, maybe not. But the offset PAPI, any progress on that at all?
So in the email we received from Nadine, she states there are no updates for the other two open projects. So essentially, it's a lead time issue with the offset PAPI, and they want to coordinate the project where it all happens at once. So they could technically do certain portions of the project now, but that would require a runway closure, and ideally, they'll time all portions of the project where it's just one closure, and we're not closing the runway a bunch of times, so they can knock it all out at once.
We're still waiting for components of that? Is that?
That's my understanding. Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, any comments before I move on to the airport manager's report? Okay, airport manager's report.
Okay, so the crack seal project, we touched on that a little bit already. This project is nearly complete. They were hoping to have it done by today, but it's actually going to be extended through tomorrow. I think they actually, they're using more material than they expected they would, so it's taking them a little bit longer. Arrowhead Tenant, earthwork has begun. I believe it's actually basically complete, and they're pretty much ready to lay down the pad for that project. We've already talked about the ASIP meeting and where we're at with that. Chamber Leadership Institute. So this month with the Leadership Institute, we had a tour of the state capitol and the Supreme Court facilities. It was kind of a day of learning about the state's operations. It was actually really enlightening. There were presentations by various different state government officials for different operations within the state. The group project, the amphitheater restoration project, is scheduled to be completed in April. We are still in need of additional funds to cover the cost of materials for that project, but we have received in-kind donations for all of the services required for the project. Airport Administrative Assistant training progress. So Kim, she can now issue access cards and handle most access control issues that arise. There will definitely be things that pop up that she'll need to use as a learning experience. Progress is being made with new standard operating procedures to improve accounts payable and receivable. So we've been meeting with Bullis to try to figure out how best to integrate our new employee with these standard operating procedures to still be in compliance with audit requirements while also reducing my workload. And we've got some good things going, but it still needs a little bit of work. Airport operations, we received about 10 inches of snow March 2nd and 3rd. We conducted snow removal from the 2nd to the 5th. That was a little bit worse than normal because of the prolonged snowfall. We definitely had to double back and snowplow everything multiple times, but we eventually got through it. It may seem like it's a waste of time when we're out there knowing that we're going to get another 8 inches tomorrow, but we do that because our equipment can only handle so much snow. So we have to stay ahead of it and not let it accumulate too much. There has been a lot of escorting of surveyors and utility employees on the airport. The ongoing future development is definitely apparent as airport operations staff are busy escorting these crews around the airport and also overseeing the ongoing operations. We have found a couple of issues with the projects that are out there, all of which we were able to address very quickly because airport operations staff is doing a great job of monitoring those projects. We had a false ELT going off on March 10th. Luckily, there was no indication of an actual accident. The snowplow that we have, the air filter is no longer, you can't get it anymore. Rick was able to retrofit our plow and truck to use a modern air filter, and that project is complete. Also in our flatbed, a 2,000 watt power inverter was installed, which can power tools, lights, and other equipment for maintenance or emergency response. The milling project is still ongoing. They've succeeded in covering an additional 22 edge lights and 4 signs with that project. Fuel flowage numbers were up 12% over the previous year. That is always good. This month is a more comparable month to the previous year. Operations numbers, however, were down 27%. This is an indication that there are, again, this is actually the same thing we saw in January. There's larger aircraft getting fuel at the airport, which is good for property tax revenues. And detailed numbers for the operations are attached. And does anybody have any questions?
Could you give me an update, please, on the SRE building? Is that the same? I mean, I think I heard you say before that there's no progress, but we had an issue with getting, the city to review plans and stuff like that. Is that past us?
So I would say that there was a hurdle there, but we're over that hurdle, and the project is now moving forward. That's the content of Nadine's response in the board packet is primarily this referring to the SRE building. And that's pretty much covers that. If you'd like me to expand on that, I can try to.
No, thanks, but that's good. That's good enough. And then on the amphitheater project, aren't you guys running a fundraiser sometime soon? Is that true or not true?
Yes, there is a fundraiser. This is being hosted by Meyer Family Wines in Carson City. You can go to the Chamber of Commerce's website for more details about how to purchase a ticket. The tickets are going to be $25 a person, and the majority of that is going to go towards funding this project. So if anyone was interested in participating in that, please go to the Chamber of Commerce's website and you can find more details about that fundraiser there.
Related to that, John, I tried to go on that website and make a donation, and it wouldn't allow me to get through it. It was technical issues, so I'm not sure if they've been aware of that or not, but we can take care of that offline. Yes, Michael?
Quick question, and I'm glad this came up about the amphitheater because I'm a benefactor to the arts. Can you talk to me offline about that matter and how the airport is involved in it? Okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't need to hear it now, but if you could tell me what the airport's involvement is, and maybe we can figure out how to make a donation, that'd be great. Thanks.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Any other questions for Corey, airport manager report? No, we're going to move on to legal counsel's report.
Just really quickly, I just looked up the time period for approval of the final budget. And the statute says it has to be approved between the third Monday of May and the end of May. Unfortunately, the first Monday of May is a Wednesday. So the third Wednesday of May is May 15th, which is before the third Monday of May, which is the earliest we can approve it. So it sounds like we're going to have some kind of special meeting or move the meeting in May to the fourth Wednesday instead of the third Wednesday, or some other day that works for you. That's something we can figure out by the next meeting because we're only in March. We'll have a meeting in April before we get to the meeting in May. The other thing is, and I'll provide this information to the airport manager, but at the time that we file the tentative budget with the state, we also have to arrange for a newspaper ad saying that whatever day we choose is going to be the day that that we have the airport meeting to approve the final budget. But I'll work with Corey. We'll get that figured out.
Yeah, and John and I are well aware of that requirement, so we'll be on top of it.
And from a legal standpoint, I don't have anything else to report.
Is that it?
It, unless
Okay.
you want to talk about Member Golden now that he's not here. I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
let's
Just
have
kidding.
a closed door. Okay, let's move on to our treasurer's report, John Rogers.
You have the numbers in front of you. I don't have anything to add to them. If you have any questions or comments, you have at it.
Any comments for John? There being none? Is there anything else that any of the members of the authority would like to discuss? Status review of projects, internal communications, administrative matters, any correspondence or status reports that want to be discussed at this meeting?
I hope I didn't miss it, but any more determination on the perimeter road in terms of weight bearing? Or are we still where we were previously?
So we're a little bit farther along. I don't have a final revised report, but Scott is working on a revised report for us that will make it more clear as to what fuel trucks should be on the perimeter road. And in verbal communication, essentially it's going to be exactly what we're doing now. So we're already kind of doing the correct thing, and we're limiting fuel trucks to 2,000 gallons on the perimeter road. So we're taking the correct action. He's still going to have a recommendation of a complete replacement of the pavement, and it'll be up to us to determine how we manage that. I believe that will be a component of the pavement maintenance that we do, although I don't foresee us doing a complete replacement of that road, but rather repairing sections as needed at this time.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, so next month's meeting, the only agenda item we're aware of right now is going to be the continuation of the emergency report that we're doing some tweaking on. And with that being said, I can call this meeting adjourned.